And I want to mention your law firm too here, pacelawfirm.com.
Right.
What kind of, you're an immigration lawyer.
Right.
What are some of the most shocking cases that you've come across?
Wow. Okay. Let's see. Well, first of all, my main work has to do with visas, getting visas to go in and out of the United States. But I'll give you one example. This is pretty shocking to me. I had a physician in New York who had married a Canadian girl and was trying to get her to immigrate to the United States on a marriage-based, spousal-based, family-based petition. In the process of that case, we learned that she was suffering from cancer and she was dying. And it was our hope that we could bring her, for her to live with him in the final stages of her life. And we appealed to the immigration authorities to allow her to come in on that basis, providing medical evidence and so on. And it was just stuck in the bureaucracy. And no matter what we did, first my appeals, then through the American Immigration Lawyers Association, then we appealed to senators, Congress and senators who wrote in letters asking for the administration to process the case in due course so that the woman could come and live with the husband, given her circumstances. And we were unable to move the administration to grant the request for her to come in. She died without being able to come and be with the husband in the United States. That's one example. But I'm not, because I'm in Toronto, I'm not involved in the day-to-day sort of like arrest and coming to see people in jail and trying to relieve them from custody, that area. There are attorneys who specialize in those kind of, in the litigation and that kind of area that are better qualified to deal with those issues than I am. But generally, a big concern in immigration, apart from wrongful arrest and deportations, are waivers. I'll just give you another example. A client of mine was driving to the United States. He was stopped at a port of entry between Canada and the United States, and they decided to do a search of his car. They did a search, and they called in a police officer with a canine, a dog, to do a search for drugs. The dog smelt a cigarette butt and signaled that there was probably marijuana remnants on the cigarette butt, but there was not enough there for the police officer to make an arrest or charge the individual with violation of the drug laws, which federally at the moment still regard marijuana as an offense, even though at the state level, many states, you can buy marijuana and smoke all you want. So this guy got blocked, and the police officer, the sheriff who came in and was called because it was supposedly a criminal offense, told him, listen, I can't charge you with anything. Go home, come back another day and see what happens. So he came back a few days later and was allowed in. And now, I think it's probably about 3 years later, he's still plagued by this incident back at the border in his efforts to gain stature in the United States. Because at every stage when he makes an application, they say, you need a waiver of inadmissibility because of this event that happened at the port of entry back 3 years ago. So his whole life is frozen, shall we say. He's unable to gain the right to work and also to live in the U.S. because everything is suspended related to this waiver. And it's been our argument all along that there's no waiver needed because there was no offense really. And he didn't know where did this cigarette butt came from. It wasn't his cigarette butt. It was in the car, but in the cigarette.
Right.
I mean, in the ashtray. But he didn't have any explanation for why it was in the ashtray. But it was there. But it wasn't a marijuana cigarette. It was a butt that evidently the dog felt or identified as having some lingering elements of marijuana to it. So there's this incongruity between the state and the federal laws on marijuana, and between Canada and the U.S. on marijuana. So, because Canada is legal in Canada federally.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but in the States it's not legal federally.
Wow.
So that's been a problem area. But I suspect that the kind of cases you were looking for in your question of impropriety or extreme harm to people are not ones that I can identify like off the top of my head.
Well, going back to the doctor and
Right.
his wife, I think there's an assumption among many Americans that if you marry somebody, they automatically become a citizen of the country. That's not true. That's not, however, the case at all, though, is it?
No, no. Unfortunately, it's not. What you can do is sponsor someone to come as a spouse, but they have to immigrate to the United States, and ultimately they may gain citizenship after they become permanent residents. And getting permanent residence in a situation like that usually takes about a year or so in terms of processing time. And in that case I cited, it was an alarming element. I mean, the poor woman was dying, and the guy just really wanted his wife, to be with him it was in New York, actually. And it was I felt a failing of not being able to humanely deal with the problem. And there was just no way, even with Senate interventions,
Yeah.
we just could not move the administration to approve the case. And there are cases like that all the time. I mean, a big problem in immigration, a huge problem in immigration, is processing. Like, that's the bane of a lot of people who are in the system and waiting for years to get approved for whatever they've applied for. And it's an irritant that is felt universally. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, and no matter what area you're in, whether it's a spouse, family member, a guy applying for permanent residence as an investor, a guy trying to get a visa to work in the United States. The processing times are a real irritant. And if the government, let's put it this way, if you wanted to be a great immigration leader, if you addressed the processing times and kept them within reasonable periods, you'd be doing America a great service and Americans a great service.